That's exactly what happened when Gordon Ramsay's taste buds met Meghan Markle's luxury raspberry jam. Not in a quiet private kitchen, but in the middle of a busy LA restaurant full of influencers, critics, and curious diners. Imagine launching your dream product, one that's supposed to symbolize a whole new chapter of your life, only to have it destroyed in seconds by a single bite. This wasn't just any jam, though. Meghan had spent months perfecting the branding with soft pastel jars, the words organic farm-toteable and handcrafted plastered across every label, all carefully designed to scream elegance and wellness. It wasn't just fruit in a jar, it was supposed to be her statement, a break from royal chaos, a move into high-end mindful living, and the jam was meant to set the tone for her new lifestyle empire. However, one of Meghan's PR team apparently arranged for her jam to be served on the restaurant's famous scones, thinking that this would be the ideal soft launch. When Ramsay was given a plate, he took a bite, and then, according to the diners, the room fell silent. He didn't even take 2 chews before spitting it out and pushing the plate away, and his next words weren't just cruel, they were career-ending. "This isn't food," he growled. "It's a crime against fruit," and witnesses claim he looked around in complete disgust before going on a full-fledged tirade, saying, "The texture's slimy, the flavor is similar to cough syrup combined with perfume." The branding was pretentious nonsense, and he didn't say this under his breath either. The restaurant was bustling with tension, and phones were already surreptitiously recording one of those clips. Within an hour, by sunset, hashtags like Jamgate and Ramsay versus Meghan were trending on the internet. What's even worse is that this wasn't Meghan's first attempt to turn her career around after her podcast failed and her Netflix projects didn't catch on. This jam was her big comeback play. According to her friends, she had even packed the jars herself. She had hoped that this would launch a whole line of upscale pantry goods, but instead it became the week's biggest joke. One user tweeted, "Ramsay just did what everyone else was too polite to say." Another said, "I'm a unicorn if this jam is organic." Food reviewers started to comment, with one saying that the texture was similar to melted lipstick and another stating that if she's selling this as premium, then ketchup deserves a Michelin star. However, it didn't end there. When asked later if he regretted his remarks, Ramsay reportedly replied, "Absolutely not, I'd rather eat from a bin than touch that jam again." Meghan's public relations team reportedly called the restaurant right away, requesting that the jam be removed from the menu and pleading with the staff to keep quiet. The kitchen complied, but it was too late, as the video had already gone viral. Not only did the restaurant quietly terminate their collaboration, with, according to one chef, "No fridge on earth can fix bad taste." Rumors circulated that Meghan's staff was attempting to justify the catastrophe by pointing the finger at inadequate storage or shipment delays. Not because of a political scandal or tabloid drama, but because a celebrity chef spoke the truth, Meghan's carefully manicured lifestyle image was shattered in a single afternoon. The truth was spreading more quickly than the jam ever could, and by the time Meghan's team attempted to regain control, the internet had already ripped the situation apart like wolves around a carcass, with memes exploding across social media. Another widely shared tweet said, "Her jam has more preservatives than her acting career." Another especially vicious post featured Ramsay holding a jar of the jam with a biohazard warning sticker put on top. Meghan had been trying to establish a new identity away from the royal drama and more into the calm, sunny world of wellness branding, but instead of being viewed as a thoughtful creator, she was now being ridiculed as just another celebrity putting a label on something and expecting it to sell. Insiders report that the damage was multi-layered and that even Meghan's supporters found it difficult to defend the chaos. Meghan's public relations staff was furious. Within hours, Zoom calls were conducted, and by midnight, a new spin strategy was written. The idea that Ramsay was biased against celebrity brands was one that was put out. As always, the brand had debuted with the kind of vigor you'd expect from a Kardashian perfume. However, internally, even her team realized that this wasn't just one faulty jar, it was a branding disaster from top to bottom. Another suggested blaming a supplier for a bad batch of the jam. Hand-drawn fonts for drop-soft focus marketing. Ramsay has made a career out of telling people the harshest truth about food, and he wasn't going to hold back just because the label had a duchess's name on it. The carefully chosen color scheme of beige, dusty rose, and cream made it look expensive, but didn't feel genuine. Customers aren't stupid. You can wrap anything in velvet and call it bespoke, but if it tastes like artificial sugar and fruit punch, they'll sniff it out. His condemnation wasn't just a criticism of jam, it was also a rejection of the identity that the product represented, manicured over content, shiny over real. As the narrative progressed, other names from the food sector added their voices. When questioned about it, famous chef Alice Waters reportedly rolled her eyes and said, "You can't fake craftsmanship." When asked to respond at a Napa event, Thomas Keller jokingly said, "I'd rather spread mustard on my croissant." A few boutique stockists who had agreed to carry the product quietly pulled out, and one retailer emailed customers who had pre-ordered jars to inform them that the product was no longer available due to quality concerns. Meghan had unintentionally poked a very particular bear. Chefs who have spent decades perfecting their craft weren't about to watch someone leapfrog into their world using only Instagram aesthetics and a royal title. Refunds were given. Meghan's website deactivated the buy button and redirected visitors to a form to sign up for updates in the future. Meanwhile, laughter reportedly reverberated through the halls of Buckingham Palace. According to a former palace assistant, several royals found the entire situation amusing. Not out of spite, but rather because of the poetic irony that Meghan, who had so boldly abandoned her royal duties to forge her own path, was now tripping over her first significant solo venture on something as innocent as jam. The whole debacle raised an uncomfortable question for Meghan's inner circle. Was she actually building anything of substance or just coasting on old fame and filtered optics? Because once Ramsay ripped through the packaging, all that was left was a very expensive, very embarrassing mess somewhere in a Los Angeles boardroom. Meghan Markle sat surrounded by advisors, stylists, brand consultants, and crisis managers. The energy in the room wasn't hopeful, it was tense. Her latest reinvention had just crumbled in front of the entire internet, and there was no palace to shield her this time. What was supposed to be a graceful pivot into the wellness space had turned into a masterclass in what not to do when launching a lifestyle product, and now the big question floated silently in the air. What next? Behind the scenes, there were whispers of pulling the entire as-ever brand, cutting losses, removing all remaining products from shelves, and letting it quietly fade into obscurity. But Meghan wasn't ready to retreat just yet. Some on her team still believed in the long-term vision. Books, cookware, maybe even a cooking show. They insisted this was just a stumble, not the end. But the outside world wasn't so forgiving once the narrative turns against you, especially in the brutally honest world of food. Clawing your way back is almost impossible. The timing couldn't have been worse. One executive from a large grocery chain was forthright when questioned off the record. "We can't sell something the internet's already mocked into oblivion." Meghan had apparently been in private discussions with a number of upscale retailers regarding potential future partnerships, but those discussions went extremely quiet. The deeper sting wasn't just about the jam, it was about control. Meghan had spent years trying to regain control of her public image, to tell her version of events, produced Netflix content to steer the narrative, started a lifestyle brand to represent a new chapter, and launched a podcast to reclaim her voice. However, in one explosive bite, Gordon Ramsay had stripped all of that away with his unfiltered honesty, which cut through the curated branding like a hot knife through jam. The media quickly picked up on this. One truth emerged from every version of the story: no amount of marketing can hide mediocrity. However, beyond the headlines and hashtags, there was something more telling of a shift in public perception, not about whether the jam was truly that bad, but about credibility. For years, late-night hosts ran segments, tabloids feasted, and even morning shows couldn't help but mention it with a smile. Meghan had walked a fine line between lifestyle ambition and empowerment messaging, but now people were wondering how much of it was genuine. Was she really passionate about the product, or was it just another celebrity vanity project profiting from name recognition in private? Some former employees even admitted that they had warned about launching too soon, claiming that the recipe had changed several times the last minute to meet a tight photo shoot deadline. However, by that time, momentum after Ramsay's fury, a 12-second video that was leaked from a restaurant showed Meghan's jam being scraped off plates in the kitchen and thrown in a bin while staff members giggled silently in the background. The video received over 5 million views in 2 days without an official apology. Perhaps that was the most honest thing about the whole story, because certain failures are so obvious and total that no reaction can make them go away. Ramsay didn't take back a single remark, and Meghan didn't make comment. In addition to being rejected, the jam was destroyed, and along with it, another aspect of Meghan Markle's meticulously manicured persona disappeared into thin air.